So in this video, what I want to do is give a nice, easy, simple introduction to a few key concepts of emotional intelligence. And as with everything that I share, what I recommend is that as I'm sharing whatever I'm sharing, or what you're looking at, whatever you're reading on screen, listening, watching, etc., that you relate it back to you. You bring it back to you in a conscious way and you go, okay, how does that relate to me? Or does this relate to me? Is this something that I need to pay more attention to? Is this the first time I've heard it? Is this a refresher of something that I've heard before, but maybe I haven't been doing as much as I could have? Just bring it back to you. And that is where the learning comes. So we could say that there are four main ingredients to emotional intelligence. And the first ingredient is the ability to be able to notice and understand emotions in oneself, and to be able to extract valuable information from them. And remember, this part of the course, this level 1 training out of 3 levels, is all about emotional awareness. It's about growing emotional awareness. So the first step is, because it's sort of like a 1A and a 1B here, is that we need to be able to notice that we're having an emotion, and that could be positive and it could be negative, inverted commas. In other words, it could be pleasant or unpleasant, good or bad. We have all these different ways of, defining emotions. And first of all, we need to be able to notice them. And as I mentioned before, it can be amazing that we can have emotions going on inside of us and we're simply completely oblivious to them. But the way that we can have signals, if you like, that emotions are going on but they're being missed, is the fact that we might have stress and physical symptoms. That's always a clue that there are missed emotions. Or another clue might be that we're having a lot of negative thinking, negative thinking going on in the mind. And another clue might be that we're having problems turning up in our life. So if we've got any of those 3 things going on, we've got physical symptoms, negative thinking, or problems in our life, then it's highly likely that there's going to be some related or connected emotions and the negative emotions. So the first step is to notice, and the second step, actually we could say 1A, 1B, 1C. So 1A is notice, 1B is to understand these emotions, to understand why they're there, and understand more about the theory of emotions. And then the third part is to be able to extract valuable information from them because they have meaning and message. For example, if somebody is mistreating you, bullying you, treating you unfairly, either in a mild or extreme manner, the body is going to be triggered into stress, and it's going to generate negative emotions as a feedback, because that's the body intelligence speaking to the head, saying, this doesn't feel good, this doesn't feel right, doesn't feel acceptable or appropriate, and this is my way of communicating to you that this isn't okay. So we can start to extract valuable information from our feelings, from our emotions. And it will also mean that either there is a need, what's called a human need or an emotional need that is not being met, or maybe an emotional need is being met. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but every human has a set of emotional needs that need to be met by the age of 7 and then ongoingly throughout life. Things like feeling loved, feeling supported, feeling acknowledged, feeling respected. These are what are called human needs, and they're absolutely essential for our emotional and mental and physical well-being. So if our needs are being met, we're likely to feel happy. And if our needs are not being met, we're very likely to feel unhappy. So for example, yesterday I went to a Christmas do here for a voluntary organization which I'm part of, and they very nicely put on a Christmas get together. And I'm fairly new to where I'm living here in Queenstown, and I don't know that many people, but I have to say already, in being here for 4 months, I feel like I've met more people than I did in 30 years in Auckland. I always felt very, very difficult to connect with people in Auckland because it's so big. And so I went to this little gathering, and that was meeting my emotional need for human connection. And more than that, it felt like I was meeting my emotional need for support. Not that I needed any support last night, but if I ever did, there's potentially a group of people that I could ask for support from. So we have these human needs, which human need, emotional need, sometimes used interchangeably, although a human need could also be a physical need. But as far as emotional needs, we have these needs that need to be met and fulfilled to a reasonable extent by the age of 7. And if those needs are not met by the age of 7, in other words, we don't feel cherished, we don't feel loved, we don't feel supported, all these things, then we're going to have this hole inside of us where there's like this big lack of feeling those things, and that creates huge problems. So the second thing, second key ingredient in emotional intelligence is that we are able to notice emotions in other people. So first of all, obviously we need to be able to notice how we're feeling, and then we need to be able to observe in other people and deduce, is that person potentially feeling a certain way? And until we can do it for ourselves, it will be quite difficult to do it, to notice it in other people. Because how can we notice in somebody else what we're not really noticing in ourselves? They go hand in hand. And this is very tied with empathy and the ability to have compassion and to put oneself in somebody else's shoes. So that is the second key ingredient in emotional intelligence. The third key ingredient is effective self-regulation of emotions. So in other words, being able to manage one's emotions by oneself without having to go to somebody else to do it for them. And that is what I love doing, is giving people as many tools as possible to manage themselves. And if we're on this journey of personal evolution, spiritual evolution, the journey of self-realization and wisdom, this is a non-negotiable part of that journey, because we have to become emotionally masterful, physically masterful, and mentally masterful of these parts of our being in order to reach self-mastery. And the fourth main ingredient is using emotions constructively to maximize our performance. In other words, if we were feeling a negative emotion, to be able to extract the valuable information to know what to change, what action to take to improve things. Or it could also be if we're feeling good, using that energy, that enthusiasm, that inspiration to maximize our performance. And we could say that there are 4 key steps to emotional intelligence. And the first step, as we've already discussed, is emotional awareness and allowing emotions to be present. The second step is the ability to tolerate feelings, which only comes through awareness and a willingness to face feelings, to notice feelings, to not be afraid of feelings, to know how to process those feelings. The third step is potentially, and these aren't in an order, these are just 4 key things that can help us become more emotionally intelligent. To be able to express our feelings in whatever way is right for us, and that will be different for each person. And I could also say that actually we need a mixture, and sometimes we definitely need to be able to, for example, express our feelings with somebody else. But We need to find our own way of processing and expressing our emotions. For example, somebody might, who's very introvert, maybe might enjoy writing and journaling more, whereas somebody else might find it more important to express their emotions with somebody else directly. Maybe we exercise, maybe we do some art, something creative. There are a multitude of ways of processing our emotions, and we need to find our own unique way. And very, very importantly, with emotional intelligence is to understand that the work is done by yourself, on yourself, in your own time. Yes, you come along and you learn some techniques, and you get some information, and you get some insight and some learnings. But the actual real work is done in our everyday life, in every moment as we move through our life and we move through our day, and we're just becoming aware of either if we're triggered and we lose our calm, relaxed, natural state, and we experience disturbance, and then we do whatever we need to bring ourselves back to our calm, relaxed, natural state, or whatever it is that we need to do to grow our emotional intelligence. This is a journey that we take, and it is not an overnight journey. It is not a magic pill. It is not something that's going to change in a week or two. And this is very important to understand, because otherwise we might start getting frustrated, either at the process or at ourselves. We've got to put in the work and be very patient and self-compassionate, and just look at it, as with anything, as a journey of one day at a time. Just getting through one day at a time is absolutely fine. So that's just a very brief introduction to some core concepts of emotional intelligence.